Welcome to Bass Talk, presented by Z-Man, and we're going to kick off the 2013 FLW Tour with the one and only, our favorite, Z-Man fan favorite, professional bass fisherman in the entire bass fishing universe, Mr. Luke Clausen. We got a huge standing room only crowd here today, Luke. I want to let you know that everybody is anxiously awaiting this interview that we've been trying to have for at least a month, trying to get a hold of you. Where you been at lately, dude?
That's a good question. I'm at home right now, a little R&R in between tournaments.
Good deal, good deal. So we kicked off the tour season this year. We've been at Okeechobee. Just got through with Smith, and you picked up. I think you got the last check in the field at Okeechobee, which is kind of normal down at Okeechobee. It seems like for you the last couple of years, and then at Smith you had a little bit better finish, but I'm sure it's not the kind of start that you wanted to see for your season. You've cashed a couple checks, but I know you'd like to be in the top 10 competing for Angler of the Year.
Yeah, definitely not. It's pretty disappointing. And Okeechobee, like you'd said, really has had my number the last few years now. Used to be Okeechobee was pretty good to me when 12, 14 pounds a day was good, and I'm still catching the same weights, and everybody's catching bigger fish. It's been a puzzle that's been a little hard for me to crack lately. I just haven't been getting those big bites. Went down there and caught a lot of fish. And found some places to really get a decent start, catch 10, 12 pounds pretty early, and then just never get those big bites that you need to get at Okeechobee. And I think next year I'm going to have to. It's been 3 years of finishing the 60s to 70th, and just kind of struggling along, not having the kind of finishes I want. And, going to Smith Lake, I was pretty anticipant of that tournament. I've always liked Smith and done fairly well there. I like clear water, spotted bass, not just fishing deep, but just the different things you can do there. I really feel comfortable in those kind of situations. And after leaving my practice, I was pretty frustrated. I just never really had a great practice. Ran around a lot of the lake there in practice, but didn't spend a lot of time up one arm, the Ryan Creek arm. So after having a lackluster practice, I started the tournament up there in a place I hadn't really practiced at all, feeling that I could see it with a more open mind as conditions changed. And, the first day it worked out pretty well. I was, I guess, pretty happy with my performance. I ended up with 13 pounds, was in 20th after the first day. I thought, that's not bad. I can just build on this tomorrow and hopefully continue to move up. I was kind of behind the 8 ball to win the event, but I felt like I was in good position to move into the top 10 anyway. And the second day, went back to a lot of those same areas and just really didn't get the quality of bites or even the number of bites I had the day before. And some of that may be that you catch fish and they just don't replenish in a lake like that doesn't have a tremendous population. I'm unsure, but I'm sure there was probably a better change I could have made. Wish, I guess in hindsight, I would have went and continued to fish new water again the second day. And for me, it's a lot easier for me to go fishing blind and just see things with an open mind and just go try this, try that, and by the end of the day, things come together versus going back to where I caught them in practice.
Now that lake. It's a lot bigger than people really understand too. I mean, it travels in like 3 different directions. There's three major, 2 major creek arms or rivers, whatever you want to call them, and there's 1 major river. And it seems like you can go in any direction for 30 miles, 40 miles, if not longer, in some directions. But there were guys that were fishing shallow in that event that focused on shallow fishing, and then there were guys that were fishing fairly deep, and then there were guys fishing for suspended fish. So where did you find yourself in the tournament? What fish did you actually go after in that particular event?
Well, again, I was kind of practicing the event, and I caught fish in all those ranges. The first day, I caught them on a spark rig with some Z-Man paddlers on it. In the morning, I caught a limit by 8 o'clock up shallow, fishing up in points in 5 to 10 foot of water, just running as many points as I could. And as the day progressed, I caught him out as deep as 50 foot, seeing him on the graph, dropping a Z-Man finesse worm on him. The fish that were suspended, actually like 10 foot off the bottom, and you get the fish to follow the bait down, see it follow it to the bottom and shake a little bit, and pretty soon they would bite. So I kind of tried to progress as the weather did. And I think that's, going back to what I was saying earlier, what's made it hard the second day. I tried to do the same things rather than just fishing and adapting by the hour.
Good deal, good deal. So let's talk about the A-rig a little bit. I know that was something you threw in practice and you threw a little bit in the tournament. there's a lot of different nuances. A lot of people think that the Alabama rig is just this: you just throw it out and reel it in, and it's the catch-all deal. You can they make it look easier than it really is. And I know there's a lot of subtleties, and there's a lot of things that you've probably been working on here in the off season to kind of perfect it. But can you share with us some of your tips on the type of baits that you use, the weights, the rig itself? Can you go into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, first of all, I think the weight and speed of that rig is the most, one of the most important factors in it. You definitely don't want to be below the fish. That's the biggest thing to keep in mind. You want to keep an eye on your electronics and make sure if you're seeing a lot of fish, even if it's a lot of bait suspended, say 15 foot down, but you're in 30 foot of water, you don't want to creep that bait along the bottom. You want it to be over top of the fish. You got to remember a fish's eyes are up on the top of its head. It doesn't see as well down, tends to feed up a lot more than down. So you want to keep the bait over it, but playing around with speed also can make a big difference throughout the day. The colder it is, a good general rule of thumb, the lighter weights you want to use. Usually as light as I'll go will be 1/8 ounce Z-Man jig heads on there. And you can actually run some weightless ones, different things like that to get them a little lighter. You get it so light it barely moves through the water column. So I like to go as light as those 1/8s, whether it's 5 or 3 of them, depending on what you can use in your particular state. And then we'll go as heavy as 3/8 or 1/2 ounce even to get down really deep and keep the bait moving as the water continues to warm up. But again, a good general rule of thumb, lighter heads, the colder the water. And even if you're fishing 25 foot, those light heads, you want to fish it really slow. It's no different than years ago. We used to swim a grub or something like that out there for those suspended fish. It's just a group of baits now instead of one. And as far as the baits go, I like to, in really cold water, use a bait with a lot more tail wag to it, where the whole bait doesn't want to roll as much, but rather the tail swims more side to side. It's a more subtle action. Really cold water, I like that. I prefer the paddlers, the Z-Man paddlers. The 4-inch one I use more than the 5-inch, but if you're around big fish, the 5-inch will work too. I really like that 4-inch one when the water's really cold, but as the water continues to warm up, I like the minnows a lot more. It has a lot more body action to it. You get a lot more side-to-side kick with that tail action. It's a lot more going on in the water, but it's just something that the water warms up. They like that more action. And as far as colors go, it's pretty easy to stick with bait fish colors. If the water gets really dirty, I like a straight pearl, or dirty for the rig, I should say. And if it gets pretty clear, that smoky shad's hard to beat. One thing to keep in mind to keep a fish focused, eating your bait as well as they can, though, is to put one bigger or off-colored bait in the middle. Like a lot of times I'll run 4 smoky shad minnows around the outside and 1 pearl one in the center. It gets that fish to focus on that one bait. If you have 5 of the same color, same size baits, they have more of a tendency to swipe at it. You foul hook fish more, don't hook them as good in general.
I got you. Now, what about, you talked about temperature a little bit. Can you give us an idea of the actual range? Like, you said the swimmers when the water's cold. Are you talking less than 50 degrees, or what's the ranges for the baits that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I like the paddlers when it's below mid-50s, below 50 especially. When you're in that 50 to 55 range, it's kind of hit or miss depending on how aggressive the fish are, I think. You get up above like 55, and I pretty much use the minnows at that point. Minnows, or if they're big fish, you go to a place like Guntersville, you really want to target big fish, put the grass kickers on there.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. Now, how about another thing that a lot of we monitoring the Facebook page? There's a lot of guys asking questions about care tips with regards to ElaZtech, and can you let us in on some of your secrets as far as how you care for ElaZtech versus some of the traditional soft plastic materials that are out there?
Well, really the biggest thing with ElaZtech is you don't want to get it around all the other traditional soft plastics. They don't play well with each other. They melt together, and you end up with a big blob, and nothing's working. So you definitely want to keep them separate. Now, whether that's keeping them in a box, I personally just like to keep them in the package myself. I keep them in the packages, and as I go through a package, I'll consolidate them with another package of them. But I change my tackle out a lot more than a lot of other people because I'm going to so many lakes. So if you are going to keep them, say, in a hard plastic box, any of the Plano boxes will work. Some better than others. I really like the what's it called? The Bass Mafia box. It's a black and red box, but that one there doesn't seem to have any effect on it. But it's really important to keep the baits laying flat in there too, to keep their shape. You don't want to let those baits slide around. and get kinked up either. But again, the very most important thing is keeping them away from other plastisols. And even if it's a box you've had other soft plastics in, any other brand, you don't want to take those out and put that ElaZtech right in there because they'll still melt, get slimy, not work as well as they could for you by any means.
Good deal. We appreciate it. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the next event. We're headed to Beaver. We're kind of getting into the meat of the schedule right now. We go from Beaver and then to Lake Eufaula here in Georgia. What do you think is going to be the deal when we go out there? I know everything changes depending on water level and temperature and that kind of thing, but I mean it's setting up to where we're talking about being out there in in the early part of April, and if I guess weather permitting, it could be a sight fishing event. It could be pre-spawn. What are your thoughts kind of going into the event?
Yeah, it's really going to depend on what kind of weather we have over the next 2 weeks. I know Beaver Lake's fairly low right now. It's still about 9 foot low. In which that can change really quick in those lakes. That water can raise really quickly. They get a week of rain, it can be up in the bushes by the time we get there. So it's really hard to say. We pretty well know if they're going to be a pre-spawn or the front end of the spawn type tournament. I don't know that it'll be a full swing spawn unless we see some really unseasonably warm conditions. But it's probably going to be, if I had to guess, it'll be that there'll be a few fish on beds, but a lot of fish trying to move up. There's going to be a lot of fish getting towards the end, getting that spawn. And a few actually spawn with them.
Good deal. Good deal. Hey, is there anything going on right now in the world of bass fishing that you want to talk about? Is there anything? What are some observations that you've seen not just in the FLW Tour this year, but in the Bass Elite Series? Is there anything interesting that's happening right now?
I'm trying to think of overly interesting things. It seems like kind of a boring year after the Alabama rig last year. That was all you ever heard about. Anybody ever asked you what was exciting? Is an easy answer. I can't think of any new revolutionary baits that are out there. Of course, we had Z-Man have some new baits out. The paddlers coming out with a couple new cool prototypes that we're going to get to use this year. But as far as like new revolutionary techniques, we're not seeing a lot of it right now. Still hearing a lot about the A-rig, which of course the baits we mentioned earlier work great on that, and it's something that's going to catch fish really well until the spawn. I guess based on what we learned last year, that's something that's going to be hard not to throw most lakes you go to. Prior to the spawn. After the spawn, it gets to be less effective. Still works in some places, but not as effective as it has been. Other than that, I can't think of a lot of exciting industry news. Are you trying to lead me into something here?
No. Well, the only thing that I'm thinking is that if one observation that I have to agree with you, it hasn't been anything kind of revolutionary so far, but the young guys getting into the sport right now, and I don't know whether this is from the high school fishing and the college fishing, because it seems like there's 3 different college fishing associations and there's some high school fishing organizations. You're seeing a lot of younger talent entering the sport, both on the bass side and then of course on the FLW side as well too. So I think that's kind of interesting. I think it's good for the sport that we have that, but there's been some young guys that have done fairly well. I think the Brandon Polinick kid out west, he's out in your part of the world. He finished second at the Classic here recently. So I mean, it's kind of nice and refreshing to see some youth get into the sport right now. That'd probably be my observation.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's kind of a double-edged sword for me. I think it's great the amount of youth that's involved, and we've had a long time in the 2 professional tours where there hasn't been a lot of young people coming into it. The last year and a half, we've seen a lot more young names come into it, been successful. You mentioned Brandon. We saw Drew Benton win down there at Okeechobee.
Wheeler. Yeah, he's another one.
There's a long list of guys the last couple of years that have got in. The bad side of that for me is I don't like to see more young guys get in. I was kind of always the young guy. Now I'm not the young guy anymore, and you just know how much drive a young angler like that has. I remember when I got into the sport, how hard you work, and that was your whole life. Your whole dedication was learning how to catch more fish, and you see that talent pool of young anglers coming up, and they're going to be forces to be reckoned with for years to come, a lot of those guys.
Well, I think that's in the long run, it's probably good for the sport. So, I certainly hope that continues that way. And I think these guys are kind of getting a little bit of an education to the business side of the sport more too, coming up through the college ranks and having a more organized platform to get in. And once they get here, they realize that hey, it's not just about the fishing. There's also a business side of this deal too, if you're going to have any kind of longevity. And I think that's important for the sport itself to grow, as well as to have these guys have that kind of mindset. So. Hopefully that'll continue on.
Yeah, I agree. I really wish I had the opportunities in high school and college that these kids have now to compete and start learning at that age. And I think, like you said, the mindset of having the marketing ability has really changed. I know when I first started fishing, I went to college for marketing and trying to learn more about that. But the major consensus then, there was more guys like Ken Cook that were going for fisheries biology.
Yep.
Think of the science of the sport and really rather than the business of it. And I think long term it's great for the sport, for the young guys to be involved. And, even for the guys that never make it to the professional level, for people to get involved in fishing in high school and college, that's a passion they're going to carry on with their life. Even if they get a job as an accountant, a car salesman, whatever it is, they're still going to keep that passion, continue to fish, and obviously support our sport that we love so much, but also be out there on the water. And we learn from a lot of those guys a lot of times also.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, Luke, it's been great again catching up with you. We're going to keep doing this throughout the year. We talked about hooking up on your boat here at an upcoming event, and we'll get some video footage with some of the GoPro footage that we can actually get up on the site too. We've got over 40, I think there's almost 41,000 Z fans now through Facebook. So the audience is getting bigger and bigger, and so we're going to need more and more content from our favorite Luke Clausen.
It'll work out. Hopefully we can get together at Beaver Lake. We're getting the boat, playing on some baits, and if anybody out there watching, make sure to get some questions in on Facebook. Anything that you'd want to know, anything we can talk to you about the baits, rigging, whatever it is, any kind of information I can help you guys out with, get those questions in, and I'm sure Jason will pass those on to me.
Yeah, make sure too that you check out Luke's Facebook page. He's real active on Facebook, and you can communicate with him that way as well. So, hey, we appreciate having you. Thanks again, Luke, and good luck out at Beaver, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy.